Hello and welcome to this downer of a video. This is my top 10 most disappointing reads of 2021. I had a little bit of a meh reading year, to be honest. Most of the books that I read were very middle of the road, which in certain sense is good because I didn't have too many books to put on this list, but in the other sense is bad because I didn't have so many books to figure out which ones to pick from for my top 10, which you will be able to see already on my channel maybe, or if not it'll be coming soon. I don't know which order I'm putting these up in, but without any further ado, we'll get into my top 10 most disappointing. I don't have all of these books, and the ones that I do have, I suppose there's an argument for me unhauling them on the basis that they were my least favourite. Let me know what you think about that. In at number 10, so 10 being the best of this bunch and 1 being the most disappointing, number 10 is Son of the Storm by C. Davies Okamboa. I was really looking forward to this one. It was one of my most anticipated releases for the year. It is an African-inspired epic fantasy story that follows Danso, who is described in the synopsis as a scholar but not one who follows the rules, and who is slightly shunned as a result, and him, you know, following his own path and you know, getting involved in some kind of conspiracy maybe. And I just loved the sound of that because I thought that it was going to be kind of quiet and scholarly, and it wasn't. It ended up being this kind of travelling fantasy story, which is just not something that I tend to enjoy apart from a select few exceptions. Most of the time the whole travelling quest style fantasy thing doesn't work for me, and that's what this turned out to be. So unfortunately it just didn't work for me for that reason. The next book I do have a copy of, but it is in a stack of books over by my other shelves, and I didn't want to topple the whole stack to get this one out, so I don't have it here with me right now, but it's In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. So this is a slightly Greek mythology inspired fantasy with a polyromance, and it was the polyromance really that captured my attention and made me really looking forward to reading it. But actually it ended up being really insta-lovey, and that's not always, you know, necessarily a problem for me in books, but in this one it just really didn't work for me because it wasn't just insta-love, it was also insta-friendship, in the sense of we've known each other 5 minutes but I would die for you kind of thing. And it wasn't believable to me. I didn't find the plot particularly engaging, and that wouldn't have bothered me if I had been really behind the characters and the relationships, but because I just didn't buy the relationships, that didn't keep me engaged with the plot as it otherwise may have done. So sadly this one didn't work for me either. After that we have The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan, which I've read the first 4 books in the Wheel of Time now. This is book 3, and this has been my least favourite so far, which on its own might not have ended it up here in this list, but the reason this is here is because I just found this really repetitive for stuff that we had already kind of, I thought, covered sufficiently within the first 2 books, and I just ended up finding this particular entry quite frustrating. Now I did much better with book 4, I enjoyed that one a lot more, and I liked books 1 and 2 fine, but this one just frustrated me, so that's why it's here. I'm not going to bother telling you what Wheel of Time is about. I feel like there's been enough coverage about Wheel of Time this year that if you want to know, you already do. From there we have at number 7 The Infinity Quartz by Akemi Dawn Bowman. Once again a book that I was highly anticipating because I really like Akemi Dawn Bowman's writing. I have read 2 contemporaries from her, Starfish and Summerbird Blue. I really enjoyed both of them, and this was her entry into SFF, particularly sci-fi really, because this story follows a character who, and this is not a spoiler because it happens like in the first chapter, dies and passes on to the afterlife, which is being controlled by this AI. And it sounded really, really fun, but the payoff just wasn't there for me. The pacing was a little bit funny, I thought. I didn't really feel overly connected to any of the characters, which is surprising because that was something that really worked for me in her other books that I've read by her. And the plot just did not grab me. I was not really gripped by it at all. I felt like it was a little bit predictable and jumpy and choppy, and it wasn't what I was hoping for, and that's really, really sad, but how it goes sometimes. Then in at number 6 we have a sequel, which is very sad, and that is Redemptor by Jordan Ifweko, which is extra sad because I thought that Raybearer was absolutely fantastic. The first book in this duology was just brilliant, and it was so unexpected, and it went in so many directions. Every time I thought I knew where the story was going, it would just turn the tables on me in a really good way and take things in a whole new direction, which I was really enjoying. And this book just didn't deliver in that way. So I read somewhere, I can't remember where it was, maybe it was on Instagram or maybe it was in the author's note or something like that, that Jordan Ifweko was working on Raybearer, book 1 in this duology, for about 10 years before it was eventually picked up, published and released. And then she had about 9 months to write this one. And it really shows, is my opinion. I feel like this one just didn't feel as intricate. Luckily, she had the world building from Raybearer to fall back on, but this one just did not feel as epic or as unexpected, and I just didn't engage with it as well. So I'm really, really sad that I didn't love this one like I loved Raybearer, but unfortunately, it just fell a little flat for me. The next one is a book that I have since unhauled, and is a book that I'm really disappointed by because it had been on my TBR for so long, and that is Do You Dream of Terror 2 by Temi O, which is a science fiction book that follows a group of teenagers who are being prepared for a mission into space. We're using teenagers because the journey to colonize Terra 2, which is the world 2.0, Earth 2.0, is going to take them a long time, so they need to be young so that they're not dead by the time they get there. And it was stacked up to be a really, really great book, but it just, the ending frustrated me so much, and I can't really tell you specifically what it was that I really didn't like about this one because it would be way too spoilery, but I just really found the ending so dissatisfying and so irritating that it completely spoiled the enjoyment that I got from the beginning of the book. So was not a winner for me, unfortunately. Next, in at number 4, we have The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu, which is a YA Zimbabwean Scottish magic story about a girl who is responsible for helping ghosts to move on, and she gets her assignments from the Library of the Dead, which just sounds amazing. And the central kind of storyline is these people that are going missing, and she's investigating it, I guess. And it was just such a letdown. It was so sad. We had one scene in the library, which was just not enough for me. You can't call the book The Library of the Undead and then have one scene in the library. I feel like that's just such a tease, and I didn't find the mystery plotline particularly engaging, and the character didn't really draw me in. There wasn't a lot of magic involved, so that was another element that I was really looking forward to that just wasn't as big of a part of the story as I was hoping for. This had all the trappings to be an excellent story, and the payoff wasn't there for me. Next, in a similar vein, at number 3, we have The Keeper of Night by Kylie Lee Baker. So this is about a character who is a Reaper in London, but she's also half Shinigami, which is the equivalent bit in Japanese culture. And for that reason, she is being bullied by the fellow Reapers and treated really poorly because she's not 100% Reaper, which is, you know, a relatable story for so many people. And that element of it I actually really enjoyed. And the point of the story is that she ends up going to Japan and trying to see if she'll fit in better as a Japanese Shinigami than she does as a Reaper in London, and of course the answer to that is no. But I was just really interested in exploring the kind of the mythology behind Reapers and Shinigamis and the kind of adventure story, but it just was so nearly there, but the whole story just kind of fell flat for me. The characters were pretty good, but not as engaging as I wanted them to be. But overall, I just feel like we didn't lean into the mythology side of things, and we didn't lean into the adventure side of things. So we were kind of stuck somewhere in the middle with a plot that was not exciting for either reason, and therefore was just not exciting for me at all, which was really sad because it was one of my most anticipated reads of the year. But sadly, again, the payoff just was not there for me. Now, this second one is one that I really disliked, and I actively urge caution on deciding to pick up. So I always do these most disappointing videos, and I call them this specifically because I don't think that any of these are bad books. They're just books that didn't end up working for me, and some of the reasons why they didn't work for me might be exactly the reason why they work for you. So if you loved these books, I'm so pleased, and if you think that you'd love these books because of what I've said, yay, that's awesome. I'm so happy about that because that's kind of the point of this video. But this one that's in at number 2 is the one that I could not with good conscience recommend to anyone. That is Solaris by Stanislav Lem, which was deeply racist, which, I mean, you could argue that it's a classic sci-fi, so I probably should have been expecting that going in. But also, why should I be expecting something so deeply racist that is still actively being published today? It was really quite uncomfortable, and aside from the fact that it was just really offensive, it was also really boring. I don't know how or why I managed to finish reading this book. To be honest, I think it was just playing and I was colouring in and I couldn't be bothered to stop it, so I just let it carry on. But I wasn't really paying attention. I couldn't tell you, you know, how it ended or anything about it, really. So I would never say to anybody, you should not read this, because that's your business. You read what you want to read, you read what you think you'll enjoy. I'm not here to censor anyone or anything, but I don't recommend this book. It was bad, in my opinion. And then finally, my most disappointing read of the year was All of Us Villains by Christine Lynn Herman and Amanda Foody. This book was billed as the next Hunger Games. It's meant to be, you know, a battle to the death between these magic users, and they're going to use magic to kill each other so that one of them can be kind of in charge of the town that they live in afterwards. And it was a competition trope, and it was just stacked up to be so great, and it just wasn't, and I was so sad about it. So firstly, it's just, I feel like if you're going to compare yourself to the Hunger Games, then you have to be prepared to be really brutal, and this book was not brutal enough to live up to that comparison. And the other deeply irritating thing about it was that it just stopped. Basically in the middle of a scene, we just stopped. I don't understand why, but the story just was in no way over, which is fine. Absolutely fine for you to be the first book in a series and the story continues in the sequels, that's okay, but don't just stop. At least have some semblance of an ending. It just didn't make any sense to me why it just stopped. Just stopped. I can't describe it in any other way than if I just turned off the camera right now and the video was over. In the middle of a sentence. I mean, it wasn't quite that extreme, it wasn't in the middle of a sentence, but still, it just frustrated me, and especially because, you know, I had already spent the whole book waiting for things to get brutal, and they weren't, and then all of a sudden it was just done. It was very unsatisfying and very disappointing, and that's why it's at the top of this list and is my most disappointing read of the year, because I just wanted to love this one and for it to be my new obsession, and it's just not. It's not. And I don't even know if I will read the sequel. Like, I might look up what happens in the sequel just because we've finished in the middle of nothing, but I don't know that I'm necessarily motivated to read the sequel. So, really sad. This video is such a bummer. I'm gonna film a top 22 TBR for 2022 now, just to perk myself back up again, because this is a real downer. But let me know if you now want to read any of these because of what I've said. That would be so great. That would cheer me up loads, because again, my aim of this video is not to be like, these books suck. It's more to be like, these books didn't work for me, and with the exception of one, maybe you want to give them a go. And if you love them, fantastic. Tell me. I want to discuss with you what it was that you loved about them. So let me know that down in the comments, and that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks. Bye.